As Election Day draws nearer, presidential campaign surrogates flock to the swing states. Empowering Mali's youth through the power of public speaking. And drink up. Is this the beer glass of the future? Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. We begin with yet another tragic ending on the Mediterranean Sea. Libyan Red Crescent officials found the bodies of 4 African migrants washed ashore in Jansour on Thursday, bringing the total found in 1 week to 25. A local Red Crescent official says the bodies found in the eastern suburb of Tripoli had already begun to decompose, indicating that maybe they may have been in a sunk boat that sank a few days ago that had 150 migrants on board. The Red Crescent says another boat with 130 people on board capsized in the same area on Thursday, but Libyan volunteers were able to conduct a rescue. While police and city officials in northern Paris on Friday moved hundreds of migrants from a camp that recently grew into a new challenge for the French government. Well, migrants boarded buses to temporary shelters for processing in an operation that began before dawn on Friday. Aid groups say between 2,000 and 3,000 migrants have camped out in the area in recent weeks, while authorities regularly evacuate migrants camped in Paris. The issue has taken on greater concern since the government shut down a vast camp in Calais last week and moved thousands of migrants to temporary reception centers. Some of the Calais migrants fled to Paris, joining others who have arrived from Italy after dangerous crossing from the Middle East and Africa. Well, the polls are tightening as only days remain the U.S. presidential race. Nominees and their surrogates are flocking to swing states like Florida, North Carolina and Arizona. Maria Diallo has more.
In this final stretch, both Republican and Democratic nominees are pushing hard, and so are their surrogates. For the first time since the conventions, Melania Trump stomps for a husband she's known for 18 years.
Love for this country is something we immediately shared when I met Donald. He loves this country and he knows how to get things done, not just talk. He certainly knows how to shake things up, doesn't he?
In Miami on Thursday, President Obama reminded the crowd they don't have to wait until Election Day to exercise their civic duty.
What does that say up there? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. What does it say up there? You know, I'm still not hearing it. What? Vote early. If you are registered, you can vote right now.
But Republican Party nominee Donald Trump, who's also been campaigning in Florida, says the president shouldn't be there.
This guy ought to get back to the office and stop campaigning.
Voting in the Sunshine State could determine the outcome of the election. Florida is a pivotal state with 29 electoral votes out of the 270 needed to win the presidency.
Real change begins with immediately repealing and replacing Obamacare.
As the Republican candidate vows to repeal one of the president's signature policies, the commander-in-chief says it's all talk.
They want to repeal because ideologically they're opposed to the idea of helping these 20 million people get health insurance. It's not like they don't even have a pretense of a plan. They don't even have a semblance of a plan. There's not even a hint of a plan. Not even a moat, not even a... There's no plan. Nothing, zero, nada.
Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton campaigned Wednesday in Arizona, a state that has voted Republican for the past 68 years, except once.
Arizona has only voted for a Democrat for president once since 1948, and that was my husband in 1996.
Clinton says her campaign has a real chance to once again win the state's 11 electoral college votes. Mariama Diallo, VOA News, Washington.
Well, African immigrants make up a small share of the U.S. immigrant population, but their numbers are growing. Zimbabwean American Praise Zenenga of the University of Arizona is among independent voters in the southwestern swing state.
As independent voters, we do not go with any political party, but we go with pertinent issues. Who is offering better policies? Who is offering better promises? I think electioneering is all about promising people, and after you promise people, it's all about delivering what you promised people. So there is a general feeling that the Democrats are offering a better package and have been delivering well, considering where the country was when President Obama took over. He got us out of a big hole, and the country is in a better position. People are able to borrow money and buy houses again. People are getting some jobs back, and people are getting student loans, and the border issues are being addressed in a very, very amicable way, which respects people's rights and family rights.
Well, charges of voter fraud, election rigging, and political hacking have peppered the 2016 presidential race. As the November 8 election draws near, is it really easy to steal the election? Here's VOA Steve Baragona.
A big pen, it is a round stick, medium.
That's all University of Michigan graduate student Matt Bernhard needs to break into this voting machine.
There we go.
These machines are in use in 20 states. Behind the door is the prize, the memory card where votes are stored.
If you were so inclined, you could come into the voter booth to vote, pop out the memory card, put your own in, install some malware.
Not only that, but we were able to develop a voting machine virus that would silently spread from machine to machine, going from a single point of infection to compromise an entire county, maybe even an entire state.
Alex Halderman is a computer science professor at the University of Michigan. He's been studying electronic voting machines for more than a decade.
When I started working in election systems, the concern was somewhat academic, that someone could hack in and tamper with votes. But over the last 10 years, the rise of nation-state attackers has really upped the ante.
And attackers don't have to steal votes to taint an election, he adds.
In 2014 in Ukraine, attackers linked to Russia hacked into the central election counting system and tried to make it so they'd report the wrong results in order to discredit the election. That's a realistic threat here, too.
Or hackers could tamper with voter rolls, preventing registered voters from casting ballots.
We're in the process of test voting right here. And
Terry Burton heads the Board of Elections in Wood County, Ohio. It's his job to be sure voting goes smoothly here. One key safeguard: these machines keep a paper copy of how the voter voted.
So if there's ever any question of, is that memory card good? Is it recording correctly? The voter had an opportunity to look at the paper copy. We can look at the paper copy and verify that that memory card and the electronic information was correct.
How often voters check the paper copy is unclear. And a quarter of voters nationwide will cast ballots on machines that have no paper backup. But it would be hard to hack all the different kinds of machines in use across the country. So experts say any effects would likely be modest and localized. Burton is not too worried.
Could someone do things to interrupt Election Day? Yes. They probably could make my day a very long day. But we feel confident that we could get the voters that are registered and are appropriately registered voted.
I just hope the election isn't close.
But polls in Ohio and some other battleground states are close as Election Day nears. Steve Baragona, VOA News, Bowling Green, Ohio.
Well, in business news, U.S. markets opened flat following an inline employment report. And in front of the national election, Africa 54 business correspondent Jill Malandrino in New York reviews what's moving trade and how markets may react as voters hit the polls.
Good afternoon from the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. U.S. stocks open relatively flat on the day, which will be indicative of trading going into the national election next Tuesday. Now, this follows the all-important employment report, the last one before the December FOMC meeting, in which the Fed will decide to raise interest rates or not. Currently, traders see about an 80% chance that we will, in fact, get that hike. Now, it's been a bumpy ride for U.S. stocks this week as the S&P 500 index is down 8 days in a row coming into today's session. That's the longest negative stretch since October 2008. Markets once again weakened amid weaker earnings guidance and jitters ahead of the presidential election next week because of market uncertainty. Also weighing on the market is a decline in oil prices, down 5 straight days in a row to fall to a 6-week low as investors reassess the previously announced OPEC production freeze agreement and weighing on disappointment in inventory data that we got on Tuesday and Wednesday. Healthcare stocks were also under pressure after Bloomberg reported that the Justice Department is bearing down in its sweeping 2-year probe into potential price collusion among generic drug makers, sending generics, farm distributors, and service stocks reeling. That was going into trade today. Now we are seeing the NASDAQ biotech up 2.5% on this session, so a bit of a rebound there. As of now, all eyes globally are on the U.S. national election, perhaps one that will prove to be the most important in our relatively short history as a nation. If there's one thing markets do not like, it is uncertainty. As of now, traders view a Clinton win as more stable for the markets, as it will be more of the same, and her policies will most likely echo Barack Obama's. Trump, on the other hand, he's viewed as an unknown, in other words, a wild card, and it will take time for the markets to adjust, and adjust they will. From the NASDAQ market site in Times Square, I'm Jill Malandrino for Africa 54.
But Africa's economy is experiencing its weakest growth in nearly 2 decades. The International Monetary Fund is urging African nations to cut deficits as growth slows down. Viewers Caroline Turner has more.
The International Monetary Fund is advising African exporters of oil and commodities to remove subsidies and boost taxes to weather the slowest growth in more than 2 decades. The Washington-based fund cut its 2016 forecast for sub-Saharan Africa by more than half, to 1.4%, from an initial forecast of 3%, as economies from Nigeria to Zambia reel from the drop in commodities prices. The director of IMF's Africa Department, Abibi Selassie, says growth could recover next year to 3%, but only if fiscal reforms are put in place.
You know, the key for us really is, the key risk is really whether or not countries will go ahead and do the required fiscal adjustment. Should they fail to do that, I fear vulnerabilities will heighten, and the crisis and the weak economic performance we've seen so far could get even more difficult.
Economies grew more than 5% in the decade leading to the commodity price drop, but it is now being crushed by 23 resource-dependent nations like Nigeria, South Africa, and Angola. The average growth of African nations was 3% last year. More diversified countries like Rwanda and Senegal will continue to grow at more than 5%. Nigeria, which is in its first recession in 20 years, is seeking to widen its tax base to offset lower revenues caused by the slump in oil prices. Selassie says the low debt would make recovery easier.
Now, the good thing for Nigeria is they have fairly low level of debt. So Nigeria is a country where if you have a coherent and consistent policy package, it should be possible for them to to get financing to support a gradual and smoother adjustment path. So the low level of debt in Nigeria is a source of strength.
Kenya has a broad-based economy that is still growing at 6%. It is justified in expanding its fiscal deficit to invest in roads, power plants, and other infrastructure. The East African nation plans to trim a budget deficit, possibly by a second Eurobond issue.
Kenya, the growth has been good over the last several years, and this year also it looks to be holding up well, but it's been accompanied by rising fiscal deficit. Now, because this deficit increase is being driven by an effort to address investment needs, infrastructure investment in particular, this is justifiable.
Selassie said African nations need to balance commercial debt like Eurobonds with other cheaper forms of financing. Carolyn Turner, VOA News, Washington.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, battling the threat of terrorism through economic empowerment. Stay with us.
I wanted to present music and a side of American culture that is most important to me, that is a part of who I am. They're going to get some incredible performances. That's one of the things I love, bringing these artists in so you can get to see them do what they do. It's soul music, and that's what music is. It's that which comes from the soul.
Welcome back. It's time for Music Makers, and today I'm joined by my colleague Roger Munto, host of VOA's RM show, to tell us about a young Cameroonian artist who's making waves in the music industry. Roger, welcome once again. It's been some time, right?
It's been some time. It's always a pleasure being here on your set.
Now, Africa is really exciting. Young men are really, taking the continent by storm. Tell us about this one Cameroonian artist.
And before I talk about local, let me tell you that you're so right when you said the African continent. Those artists are taking the music to the next level, because now the American superstar in music are going back to Africa to work with those artists. So now that's what I'm going to talk about. Local was our guest at VOA this week. This is a young Cameroonian who's making a name for himself all over Cameroon. Such a brilliant kid who started singing at age of 5. Wow. He was my guest on the RM show. And he's telling us how, really, I asked one question that really got me off guard. I asked him if he had someone who he looked up to when he was young and making music. He looked at me straight in the eyes and was like, you know what? Nobody.
Nobody. He was his own inspiration. He has his own. He had his own dream, his own idea.
You hear it all the time. Like I used to look at Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson is like, no.
All that. He was like, no. I admire all of these people, but I'm my own inspiration.
And I think that is sometimes the best thing. You compete against yourself.
Beautiful voice.
Let's watch this song. What do you call this one? It is a Perfect Girl.
Perfect Girl. It's a Perfect Girl that he did with another artist and featuring. And this song was awesome.
Okay, let's watch this. Beautiful song.
Yeah.
If I breeze now, you look at me like a man. Will I have your attention just for a moment? Allow me to hold you here. I can't keep it any longer. You're everything I like, baby girl, you're my type. Give me your number. She's so sexy. Elle a le botcha. If God just gave us some more, she could cause murder. When I see you, I wanna take you back to my place. Do things we can only do face to face. Tell me if I'm going wrong on your case. Anyway, yeah, girl, I can handle the case. Just handle the case, baby, handle the case. If I could choose, I would die on your waist. When she find me, say we go mad, oh. The way she shine me, say we just go, bro. If we go have it, if we go have it. My papa gotta listen to the way I do pray. The way this nigga is running inside out my head. Make me think that it's a curse or supernatural. Please show me your mama. Make I tell your papa que c'est toi que je veux. Aïe, 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 aïe. Please show me your mama. Make I tell your papa que c'est toi que je veux. Baby, c'est trop, trop. Baby, c'est trop. Tu me rends dingue, 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 dingue. Je sais plus quoi faire.
Great song, great quality video there.
Great quality video.
But I suppose also this young man, one of the things that is making them really excel is that when they look around them, there's so many other very good artists, right?
Exactly.
Whether it's in Cameroon or across the country.
Well, across the country. And you know, the good thing about them is that they'll learn quickly. They look what's happening in America.
Yeah.
What's happening with all, the music in the United States and Europe and all that kind of stuff. And they realize that we can make all of that in our own environment. You know what I mean? We don't need to go to Brooklyn to do a music video. We don't need to go to LA. We can stay here in Cameroon and with our own talents and do the music in our own language. You know, as you can tell, this artist, local, sings in various languages, different languages, in his own language, and then in French and in English perfectly.
Yeah, and you know, through their music, they get to tell the story of the continent.
Exactly, of the continent as well. That's right.
Hey, Roger, thank you very much for sharing
Thanks,
this
it's
with
always
us.
great having me. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, that's Roger Muntu, who is the host of VOA's RM Music Show, and you can find more about him and the show on Facebook, and it's what? RM Show VOA, right?
VOA, correct.
RM Show VOA.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this summer, 1,000 young African leaders came to study in the United States through U.S. President Barack Obama's Mandela Washington Fellowship Program. One of these young leaders was Alfousseni Sidibé. He's a native of Mali. His mission is to empower Mali's youth through the power of public speaking. VOA's Paul Dio has his story.
After being rejected 2 years in a row, Alfousseni Sidibé was finally selected as one of the 1,000 participants in the Mandela Washington Fellowship. The fellows represent nearly 50 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. In 2016, Sidibé founded Live Your Dream, a grassroots community development enterprise inspired by Toastmasters International.
The foundation of any development is young people. So I said to myself, we need to start something. And I said, okay, let's start on this organization, which name is Live Your Dream, because I believe each and every one of us has a dream, and we are helping them to realize this dream.
The 29-year-old Malian started this organization in his hometown in Bandiala to focus on youth empowerment, entrepreneurship, public speaking, civic engagement, and business mentoring programs. What inspires you?
Once I see myself able to add value to another person, helping him to find his own voice, helping him to find his own way, this is what makes me happy. And actually, reason why I'm still fired up to continue and helping them to continue to help them to grow, because I also received from other people.
The African Union considers youth as a unique resource that requires special attention because they constitute up to 65% of the population. Sidibé says young people in Mali are a formidable creative resource that can be harnessed for the country's socio-economic development.
We say young people are the future of tomorrow. They are the future of a nation, but I say the future starts today. I believe that we Africans, we will make change, and this change starts from now.
Finding opportunities for young people is a critical challenge for Mali. But Sidibé says that there are possibilities in farming and that young people should embrace going into agriculture as a profession.
We see agriculture as an engine to change Africa. Because if we provide enough food, if we can, I'm not saying to stop importing food, but if we can produce food that can compete with the one which is imported and show to the people the benefit of eating locally, encouraging local consumption, encouraging local production, this is how we can get Africa out of the poverty.
Most exciting, perhaps, is that Alfousseni plans to continue empowering the youth innovative programs on entrepreneurship to tackle Mali's high unemployment rate among youth aged 15 to 35. Sidibé also has his sights set on elsewhere in West Africa, where he's already in talks with the administrators of other important youth initiatives to start Live Your Dream satellite programs. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Is this smart glass good news for beer drinkers? We'll be right back. Tell me.
If you've
just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. Thousands of Nigerian refugees still in Chad 2 years after escaping raids by Boko Haram militants back home. UNICEF calls attention to over 250,000 refugees from the Central African Republic who are living in Cameroon. Some Nigerians are returning to their homeland after finding life in Europe was not full of the promise they had hoped for. And in the Mediterranean, hundreds of migrants from Africa rescued at sea while attempting to reach Italy from Libya. In Kenya, conservationists carry out an operation to collar 2 young male elephants to better understand their migration route. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. Now, a joint Israeli-Turkish venture has developed a smart drinking glass by embedding a microchip in its base that links to an app on a smartphone and sends data to beverage companies and product promotions to the consumer. Now, the startup Glassify says that by providing bars with chip-equipped branded glasses at almost the same price as regular glasses, a beer brewer can track sales and tap into information such as age, gender, and beverage preferences that a customer enters into the app in return for packs such as a drink on the house or discounts. Well, next up, more good news for social media giant Facebook. The company reported a 55.8% rise in quarterly revenue, beating analysts' estimates as its mobile advertising sales soared. Mobile and revenue accounted for 84% of Facebook's total advertising revenue in the third quarter, compared with 78% a year earlier. Facebook said about 1.79 billion people were using its site monthly as of September 30th, up 16% from a year earlier. More than 90% of Facebook's users access the social network through mobile devices. Now, mobile daily average users rose 22%. Well, and finally, is this the oddest viral story of the week? Russian President Vladimir Putin has awarded Russian citizenship to American action film actor Steven Seagal. The 64-year-old Seagal has been a regular visitor to Russia in recent years and has accompanied Putin to several martial arts events, as well as vocally defending the Russian leader's policies and criticizing the U.S. government. In 2013, Seagal called Putin one of the greatest world leaders, if not the greatest world leader alive today, in an interview with the Russian state-owned TV channel RT. And that is what is trending today. And that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, African News Tonight at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa. That is between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us here in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's Newswords.
You might hear this word in a story about crime in troubled towns.
Looting.
The unarmed teenager was shot here by a white police officer, sparking violent protests, looting, and vandalism. Now, this is a gathering site for a community determined to quell the unrest and find justice.
Looting. Looting means to steal. It is against the law.
Looting usually happens during riots, when police do not have control of a crowd. When people break into stores taking goods both big and small, they are looting.
So the next time you hear the word looting, your American English will be good enough to know what this news word means.